You know that feeling, right? You're just sitting at home, maybe scrolling through your phone, and then bam, that little pit forms in your stomach. It's that nagging sense that somewhere, someone is having way more fun than you are. Well, that feeling, it's got a name, FOMO. And today, we're going to break down what it is, why it has such a grip on us, and how to finally break free. Let's dive in. At its heart, FOMO, the fear of missing out, is really a kind of social anxiety. It goes beyond simple envy. It's this deep, almost gut-level belief that you're on the outside looking in, that you're missing out on some crucial, amazing experience that everyone else is part of. It's a really powerful, almost primal feeling. And to really get it, let's talk about James. Right now, James is completely stuck. He's at home on a perfectly normal Tuesday night, but in his head, he's everywhere he isn't. He's totally trapped by that exact sinking feeling we're talking about.
See, James has fallen into what you could call the FOMO trap. And it's this nasty cycle that feels just about impossible to escape. And it's fueled by the very tech that's supposed to keep us all connected. So this is James inside that trap. His thumb is just in a constant state of scrolling. Every single notification, every story, every post is like a double-edged sword. It's a potential reward, but it's also a potential confirmation of his biggest fear. He's not just looking at pictures. He's measuring his own life against these perfectly curated highlight reels of everybody else, and it's absolutely making him miserable.
So why does James feel this way? I mean, what is actually going on inside his brain? Well, to understand that, we've got to look at the psychology behind the fear of missing out. And trust me, this is where it gets really interesting. Okay, first up, we have a classic, social comparison theory. The whole idea is pretty simple. We figure out our own social and personal worth by stacking ourselves up against other people. The thing is, social media is like this theory on steroids. It's constantly shoving us into what psychologists call upward comparison. You know, comparing our normal everyday life to someone else's incredible vacation photos or their huge life announcements. And this slide shows you the results perfectly. All that comparing creates this massive gap between James's actual self, who he really is on a regular Tuesday night, and his ideal self, this flawless version of himself that social media makes him think he should be. And that gap, it's a breeding ground for anxiety and that urgent, panicky feeling of needing to catch up. All right, next up is something called self-determination theory. It basically says that for us to feel good psychologically, we all need three things. Think of them like psychological vitamins. Autonomy, which is a sense of control, competence, so feeling capable, and relatedness, which is all about feeling connected to other people. And here's the crucial part. FOMO is a direct attack on our fundamental need for relatedness. So when James sees his friends out together without him, his brain doesn't just go, oh, they're having fun. No, it interprets it as, I am being kicked out of the tribe. It feels like a genuine threat to his sense of belonging. Now let's talk brain chemistry, because this part is fascinating. We usually think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, right? But it's actually much more about the anticipation of pleasure. So James imagines how amazing that party must be, and his brain anticipates that awesome reward. But when he realizes he's not getting it, he feels this crash. That's the negative contrast you see here. And that awful feeling is what drives him to just compulsively check his phone, desperate for any other little dopamine hit to fill that void. It becomes a really vicious loop. And if all that wasn't enough, his brain starts telling him lies. Psychologists call these cognitive distortions. He starts catastrophizing, blowing one missed party way out of proportion. He starts mind reading, just assuming he knows exactly what everyone is thinking. And he uses emotional reasoning. Basically, he lets his feelings become facts. His brain is getting all tangled up, mistaking what's possible for what's probable. So, with all the psychology working against him, what's the big takeaway? Well, it turns out FOMO isn't some new modern problem. It's actually an ancient one with a modern twist. You could almost call it a glitch in our evolutionary wiring. And this right here, this is the key insight. Your brain evolved in small tribes where being socially excluded could literally mean death. I mean, being left out of the hunt or the group gathering was a serious survival threat. Today the stakes are, well, they're brunch, but your ancient nervous system, it can't tell the difference. It sounds the exact same blaring alarm bells for a missed party as it would for being cast out of the tribe forever. Okay, so understanding the problem is one thing, but actually fixing it, that's something else entirely. James realized he just couldn't stay in that trap, so he started building a toolkit. But this wasn't about fighting FOMO head-on. It was about totally transforming it. So, The big question is, how did James actually fight back against this ancient, incredibly powerful instinct? Well, he didn't use brute force. He used strategy. He learned how to work with his brain instead of against it. First, he started using this powerful technique called cognitive reappraisal. He learned to catch those distorted thoughts in the act and then challenge them with simple, logical questions. So, when his brain would scream, "I'm missing something amazing," he'd calmly ask back, "Okay, but what actual evidence do I have for that?" This simple act actually engages the logical part of your brain, which helps calm down all that emotional panic. And this led him to a really powerful new idea, JOMO, the joy of missing out. Now, this isn't just sour grapes or pretending you don't care. It's an active, intentional choice. It's about reframing missing out as opting into your own peace, your own energy, your own focus. It's about taking back control. And to break that chemical cycle we talked about earlier, James put a dopamine reset plan into action. The steps were super simple, but they were incredibly effective. First, he turned off all of non-essential notifications to stop those constant pings from hijacking his attention. Then, he set specific scheduled times for social media so it became an intentional activity, not a compulsive habit. And finally, he cut out the late-night scrolling. Altogether, these things helped reset his brain's reward system, making him way less vulnerable to those anxious little craving loops. And maybe the most important thing he did was change the fundamental question he was asking himself. He stopped focusing on the scarcity of what he was missing and started focusing on the richness of what he already had. Just by practicing gratitude and savoring his own present moments, he was able to ground himself in his own real life. So what was the result of all this work? Well, it wasn't about him becoming some antisocial hermit. It was about becoming intentionally pro-self. It was about finding freedom. So this is the new James. Yeah, he's still connected, but he's not trapped anymore. He's actually present in his own life. He makes choices based on what he values, not on a fear of what other people are doing. He found that the joy of his own experiences is so much bigger than the fear of missing someone else's. So if we boil all this down, we get this core formula for FOMO. It really takes over when one side of the scale, that combination of social comparison, perceived scarcity, and reward anticipation, gets heavier than your satisfaction with your own present moment. And the really powerful insight here is you don't have to get rid of FOMO completely. You just have to tip the scales. Weaken any one of those things on the left, or just strengthen your satisfaction on the right, and FOMO starts to lose its grip. And that leaves us with one last thought to chew on. We spend so much time and energy worrying about what we might lose by missing out. But the real question, the better question, is what will you gain? What peace, what focus, what joy is just waiting for you when you make that intentional choice to simply be right where you are?